Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Everything and Anything podcast with Sarah. How are you guys? How's everyone's Eid celebrations? Let me know in the comments. I hope you all had the most beautiful times with your family and friends, inshallah. A little recap on my Eid. I went to Eid Namaz with my family, and then we came home, had some family time before we went to an Eid brunch, and then had our mandatory Eid nap and then spent dinner with my extended family. And seeing everyone in festive times like this is always so nice, especially with everyone dressed up and looking so good. It's always so wholesome. I have been feeling the post Ramadan depression, however. It's one of those feelings where you wish you could have done more or had more time. I think the older we get, we realize how special Ramadan is, and we want to try to make the most of it. And Eid feels a bit sad because it means that the month has officially ended, but it's also bittersweet since Eid is still such a happy occasion. But let us get into this episode now. We are going to talk about 10 things that I've learned since moving countries. I thought that this could also be a way to introduce myself to those that have been listening but don't actually know me yet. So, my name is Sarah, lol. Nice to meet you. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I lived there till I was 15, and then I moved to Canada, specifically the Toronto area. I finished off high school there, and then I did my bachelor's at the University of Toronto, and then I did my master's in Waterloo. And then after I finished my master's, I moved to Texas, which was a lot of things, but mostly hard. I now work as a data scientist in the field of AI research. So I have the credentials of moving countries twice to be able to put this list together of what I have learned from moving countries. Okay, so I wrote this list down, so let us go through it. Number one, it is okay to be sad. I think this was the most important lesson of all. Moving is a really big change and it comes with a lot of unknowns. A lot of people move cities or provinces or states, and even those are big changes that can cause you to be sad and miss the life that you once had in a different place. And there's nothing wrong with missing that life and wanting to experience it again. It's okay to be sad about the fact that you won't be at this stage living there again, and you won't be able to go to your spots and places. You won't be able to see the people that you saw as often, and it's okay to be sad that you have moved. That feeling of sadness somehow stays with you, especially if the last place that you were in was particularly meaningful to you. And even as time goes on, that sadness kind of tends to stay, and the sadness does occur less often as you settle into your new place and have a routine and new routes and everything, but it never really goes fully away. And one night you can be looking at pictures of the time that you moved before you had moved, and it'll feel as though you've just left a couple of days ago and the sadness feels fresh. But then you once again you settle back into your normal and it subsides. Number two, go with the flow. Before you move, you look into the area that you're going to live in and you start to imagine what life is going to look like in this new place. This might also be a coping mechanism, at least it was for me. I found that moving was a way for me to declutter a lot of the things that I had, physically and mentally. And I thought that I was preparing for my move, but in reality, I was just doing stuff to avoid thinking about the fact that I had to leave. And you think about all of these new places that you would go to, or a new job that you might have, or maybe even new friends that you might make, but rarely any of that actually fits into what ends up happening. And moving is unpredictable sometimes. People can be different than what you expected. Your reaction to the move might even be different from what you expected afterwards. A lot of things seem like they're going to fall out of place because this is not really what you had in mind. And so going with the flow allows you to loosen the grip on expectations that you had. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care or we stop trying to have a structure in place. It just means that we trust that things will fall into place, even if it's not what we imagined it to have been. And that can also mean just being okay with delays, surprises, and moments of discomfort. And with this, you also find yourself growing and learning the most. And there will be a lot of moments where you feel that discomfort, especially when a place is not familiar and no longer the place where you had every road and street memorized, and it just feels like you've been put out of place, like you are out of place and you don't know where you are. But continuing on regardless, it takes courage, and going with the flow takes courage, and you are courageous. Number 3, adaptability. Adaptability is often something that you have to learn to adopt. Unfortunately, as humans, we like to stay in our comfort zones, and forcing yourself to adapt feels somewhat unnatural. When you're suddenly dropped into a completely new environment, a new language, new weather, new social cues, new literally everything, you either adapt or you cry, or in my case, you do a little bit of both. But being adaptable doesn't mean you forget who you are. It means that you're flexible enough to grow into who you need to be in this new space. And I also noticed that adaptability showed up in small moments, like realizing that I couldn't get the same brands that I used to love, not shop at the same stores I used to love, so I had to try new ones, or that the people around me had different senses of humor or spoke differently than I was used to in conversations, and there were just unspoken rules, and I had to adjust socially as well. And adaptability is kind of like a muscle. The more that you use it, the stronger that it gets. And over time, you start to surprise yourself with how quickly that you can adjust and how resilient you actually are, and how you can kind of build a home within yourself so that no matter where you are, you will always have yourself. Number 4, you will feel lonely. I think this one speaks for itself in my case, but it does need to be talked about. Even if you move with family, even if you have friends or community waiting for you, there will be moments of very deep loneliness. Because when you leave a country, you're not just leaving a place, you're leaving a version of yourself behind. And it's very scary as well. And you're leaving your routines, your comfort zones, your history. You're leaving the people who just get you without needing an explanation and context. And in your new place, everything takes time, like making real friends, finding people, building that sense of belonging, if that even does ever happen. And all of those things don't happen overnight, and it takes time. And that in between period, it's very isolating. There's moments where you can be surrounded by people, even your own people, but in a new place, you get that feeling of, I feel so invisible and alone right now. And that kind of loneliness, it's a little bit different. It's not just about being alone, but it's also about feeling unknown. That was deep. Um, but it feels like no one really knows you, like how your home knows you, like the people at home know you, and you don't even really know yourself in this new place. You're not really sure who you're supposed to be, and it's a very lonely feeling. But there is a flip side. Loneliness also teaches you a lot. It teaches you how to enjoy your own company. It can push you to befriend yourself in many ways, in new ways, and it shows you sometimes a kind of this kind of connection you're really craving, and it makes you more intentional about the relationships that you do build, if any. So it will feel lonely, but that doesn't really mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you're in a transitional period, and slowly the loneliness does soften, and you allow yourself to make space for new things and new rhythms, and even a new version of you that's more self aware and grounded than before. Number 5, through isolation and solitude, you will discover yourself. This kind of leads into the last point of loneliness, but the more you spend time alone, the more you learn about yourself. And when you move countries, there's a silence that kind of sets in. You're no longer surrounded by the familiar noise of your old life, like your go to people or your routine. And all of a sudden everything just becomes quiet and you don't really have those things to fill in the time in that space. But in that quiet, you kind of start hearing yourself a little bit more clearly. At first, it feels kind of uncomfortable. Like, who even am I without all of these people and these places that make me feel like me? And then slowly, that solitude kind of becomes space. It becomes space for you to think, space for you to reflect, space for you to rebuild. And a positive to this is that I stopped needing constant noise or distractions. And I think this was something that maybe other people have noticed as well. But when you kind of take yourself away from moments where you do have a lot of distractions, you're not really focusing on the self reflection part of yourself a lot. And in having space to be alone and to truly just be away, to be yourself away from all of the external factors. And then once you're back into the hustle and bustle of the people and the places that you love, you'll actually appreciate it a little bit more and find yourself listening to yourself even in those moments. Okay, number 6, appreciation of home. This kind of goes back to what I just mentioned, but when you move countries, it kind of cracks open something inside of you. You start to notice all of the small and quiet things that you took for granted back home, like familiar smells or the way that the sun hits your street and your local grocery store, maybe even hearing a native language around you if you move to a place that doesn't have the same language anymore, or even just knowing how to do life without overthinking literally every single tiny step. And it kind of hits you in unexpected moments, like when you're trying to explain a food from your previous country and you realize that no one here really gets it, like poutine. Nobody in frickin' Texas knows what the heck poutine is. And they don't understand the deep, deep love of Tim's. I just can't. How are you living without those things inside of you? But, anyways, but here's the beautiful part, distance breeds appreciation. This is kind of like with people too. When you have distance between people, you start to appreciate them a little bit more too. But with places as well, I realized that this is also true for a place. Moving away made me love home in a way that I never really had before. It made me realize how deeply it shaped me in the way that I speak, how I think, and how I relate to people. It made me want to hold on to those parts of myself more intentionally. And having moved so much, though, like twice, I realize now that all the places that I have lived in are my homes because without them, I wouldn't be me. So each of them, both Saudi Arabia and Canada, gave me my people and it gave me my personality and it gave me my memories. It gave me my heart, and not one or the other is more home than the other because without one of them or without both of them, there would be no me. So trying to turn that feeling into gratitude helps. So gratitude for my roots, for where you came from, for the people and places that built you. Home then becomes more than just a location, it becomes a feeling that you carry with you instead. And that appreciation and gratitude can help soften the homesickness and it turns that nostalgia that you feel into something a little bit more sacred. And number 7 is resilience and patience. These are two very heavy words, but I find that they kind of go hand in hand. Resilient is a bit of a strong word. It's like standing tall or pushing through. But when you're actually living through big life transitions, resilience can kind of look a little bit quiet. It can just look like showing up for yourself when you feel overwhelmed, trying again and again after rejection, smiling even though you feel so homesick, getting out of bed even though your heart is tired in this new place. And there's a lot of moments where your heart will feel tired just trying to adjust to the new life. And then there's patience, and not like the easy kind where you're just like waiting for cookies to bake, but the real raw kind where you're waiting for clarity and you're waiting for life to feel normal again, and the kind of patience where when you're waiting for cookies to bake, you know exactly how long it's going to take for those cookies to bake. But with this kind of patience, you don't know when that's going to happen. You don't know if when you're going to feel that clarity or when life will start to feel normal and okay again. And it's the kind of patience where you keep telling yourself to just hold on a little bit longer, even if things are uncertain. And I think that resilience without patience can make you feel burnt out, like you're constantly forcing yourself to be strong. But when you pair resilience with patience, it becomes a little bit more sustainable and it becomes more softer, more forgiving, and you end up not just trying to survive change, you also learn to go through it at your own pace. And there were moments where I felt like I should be adjusting faster or settling better or doing more, especially when it had gotten to a point where it was 6 months, 8 months after I had moved and still felt the exact same way as when I first had moved. And you just kind of have to remind yourself that this is something that takes time and it's a long game essentially. And trying to create a new routine does take time, which requires patience and finding work, thinking about making new friends. And it's hard going through any of it, but using that patience and that resilience will help. Number 8, talk to your friends as much as possible. Don't underestimate the power of staying connected to the people who already know you. I found that even a 5-minute voice note, a funny meme, or a random I miss you text can really help make your day, because no matter how much you grow and evolve into a new place, there's so much comfort in being known and in talking to someone who does not need any context and who remembers your awkward phases, who knows pretty much everything about your life, and you don't have to re explain to them things that have just happened. They just know. Those things are kind of irreplaceable. And when the effort is put on both sides, it makes the transition so much smoother, even if you haven't physically met in person, but you have continued to talk. Thankfully, we have the technology nowadays where we can not only talk to our people all the time, but also do so while seeing their face. One of my favorite activities in the past year of being here is cleaning my room or doing mundane things with a friend while on FaceTime. It feels like you're hanging out. There is still the lack of physical distance that is very much felt, but just being able to be yourself with them in that moment helps breathe life back into you. And if you know someone who has moved, don't underestimate how much a FaceTime or a call or a message can mean to them while they're still trying to adjust into their new place. It literally makes my whole day when I talk to my friends and I feel less alone and more heard. And it really becomes my favorite part of the week and makes me look forward to it the most. And sometimes it can feel like you're bothering them because for them, life hasn't really changed all that much because you're the one that moved, right? But real friends, they want to be there and they want, and when that effort is made to keep those lines open, you feel less alone, you'll feel held even from a distance. And for my friends that are listening, thank you for making me feel a little bit better on those days. And another point I want to add to this quickly is to ask for help from these friends. Being able to say, I'm sad today, or I miss home, or I feel down and I don't feel good, will help you in the long run. Even if there's not really much that that person can do for you because there is still distance that exists there, but in opening up and allowing them to be there will validate the friendship and deepen it. And it allows them to see that this is something that is taking a toll on you and that you cannot really do it without those small communication moments with them. Number 9, people don't realize how big the world is, I think, and also at the same time how small it is. When you move countries, you start to see just how vast the world is. There are entirely different ways of existing outside of what you grew up knowing, different languages, different rhythms, different values, different definitions of what normal is to people. And it's kind of humbling. You realize how much you don't know, and it makes you curious as well. But then also, the world feels incredibly small sometimes. Like when you bump into someone who's from the same city as you, from 1,000 miles away, or when a stranger knows a family friend, or if you end up in the same neighborhood as a lot of people you grew up around, which is my case right now. It's really odd. Like, how am I surrounded by people I hadn't met in like 10 plus years since I left Saudi, but now I see them like every month? Weird. And seeing the world in this way, you start to also see the little threads that connect people across borders, being able to see that the world is big enough to hold so many stories, like a billion different stories, but small enough so that your story can still find its way to someone. And that realization has made me, I think, more gentle with people and also more fascinated with them because there's so much complexity within every person, and also more appreciative of my own story and the places that I have come from and the people that I have come from, because it all fits into this beautiful, messy, interconnected human puzzle. And lastly, number 10, every place has its pros and cons. You know that feeling when you travel somewhere and you're like, I could live here. And it's when the air feels fresher and people seem happier and the coffee tastes better. And then your life back home feels like a little meh. In that moment, it really feels like life might be better here than where you are. But living in a place and visiting a place is very, very different. My dad has said this to me so many times, it's like drilled into my head. But when you live somewhere, you're not just like sipping lattes and cute cafes or walking through like Instagrammable neighborhoods and stuff. You're dealing with real things like the healthcare system, taxes, the job market there, public transportation there, culture shocks, and again, all of the things that I mentioned before, like loneliness and adjusting and adaptability and resilience and patience and everything. And you start to see the cracks behind those pretty postcards, and that doesn't necessarily make the place bad. It just makes it real, and it's with every place, even city to city, state to state, province to province. It's just what is the truth. And what matters most, I think, isn't chasing the glamour of a place, but it's figuring out what you need in your life. And I think this is something that also comes just with adulting as well, is finding out what you value. Is it the community? Is it career growth? Is it safety? Is it affordability? Is it having a slower pace? Maybe you want to live somewhere where it's sunshine all year round, and it's finding those places and deciding if that place that you're considering moving to prioritizes the same thing. And that alignment matters more than the aesthetics of the place or the first impression of the place, because there is no perfect place. Every city and every country has its flaws, but also has its magic. The key is to know yourself well enough to choose a place where the pros line up with your priorities and the cons are something that you're willing to live with. And if it's not, then you find a different place that does have that. And this perspective, I think, will help stop romanticizing the next place that we want to be in, or and be a little bit more intentional and grounded about where you currently are, because where you are currently is still something that is adding value into your life, even if it seems like it's not. You still have people, if you do have people there that are providing something for you, or you still have a job that's providing something for you, or you still have something to learn from this place that you're in right now. I know sometimes it often feels like the place that we're in is like the worst place ever, and we just want to leave and we want to go somewhere else, and it just becomes like this is just not it. But going to a different place, at one point you will feel that same way again, and that is not a bad thing. It's just a thing. Like, it's just what happens because that is the reality of this life. In an Islamic lens, this dunya is never going to be. And that's really come to light for me after moving here. Not to say that Texas is bad, lol, but there's always going to be something about every place that just makes it imperfect because this world is not the final destination and it's not the perfect destination. Jannah is. And no matter where you live, as long as you continue to hold on to that fact that Jannah is the final destination and work towards it, everything else becomes an accessory to be able to do so, or should become an accessory to be able to do so. And if you find yourself in a place where it's you are working towards that less, then that means that something needs to change. And with that, those are 10 things I've learned from moving countries twice in my lifetime. So I have the credentials, guys. But will I ever move to a new country? I don't know. And who knows? But at least I will have some of the skills to be able to handle it, you know? And if you have moved countries or cities or provinces or states, did you relate to any of this? And if you did, comment below. Or if you have lived in the same place forever, did this maybe help you prepare for a future move or make you think about it a little bit more? I don't know. Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on this because I am still very much in the trenches with going through the changes of moving, even though it's been more than a year. But every time I think that I'm okay with being here, I remember what life was like and then I get sad. But alhamdulillah, regardless. If you have made it this far into the episode, thank you so much for listening. It means so much to me, and I hope to see you again soon in the next episode. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe, follow, like, and comment. And until the next time, I hope you have the best days ever. And